Managed to crack on a little bit with the Escort, got the dashboard done, so I'll go over that in this video, and also managed to get hold of a passenger front door, so managed to get that painted and on as well. So managed to get hold of a Mark IV front door. It seems to be pretty rust free and pretty straight as well, a few little dents in it but nothing major. All the corners, the important area, are really solid, and underneath is really clean, which makes a change for these doors. There is a hole that's been cut for a speaker. I could leave that, wouldn't really be noticed with the door card on, but since I've got another door that I can chop the bit off, I will weld that up. Also, I think on one of my previous videos I did say that it looked like somebody had pot riveted the manual winding handle on for the window, but it does look like that's how they are from factory. So just start stripping the door down, get all the parts off of it ready for welding and painting. And I did just notice that there's a small little bit of surface rust right at the top, but it's quite a common place for them, but it seems to be pretty solid still, so we'll just wire brush that and then give it some Genelite rust converter just to clean that up. Start by just rough cutting out from the original door the bit that I'm just going to weld in. I just work my way around the patch of the boulder, just doing little tacks. Although it's on the inside of the door and it won't really ever be seen, I still don't want to warp it or have it bent, so just slow and steady with this. Then just clean it all up with a 40 grit flap disc and a small amount of work with the paraffile. I then moved on to delocking this door. I was in two minds as the lock was in really good condition, but as the driver's door was already delocked when I'd got it, I thought I'd carry on with this one. So I made up a small little round plug and just welded that into place. I used the stand again that I made for the driver's door just to keep the door steady, and then just started sanding the paint down. So I used an 80 grit paper on this. The adhesive that had been used for the rubber strip down the door proved to be a bit of a pain. I found the best thing to get that off was some brake cleaner. That seemed to take it right off, a little bit of elbow grease, but nothing too bad. Where I knew it was going to need some filler, I just took it back to bare metal and then just went over with some epoxy primer before applying some filler to that. Quick skim of filler and a sand, and then it's on with the high build primer. I honestly dread to think the amount of hours that I've spent sanding this car. And then on with 4 coats of diamond white, and hopefully this is the last part of the painting that I actually have to do. And that's the door all finished. It's probably the best panel that I've actually painted of the car. I think as you start to build a bit of experience and a bit of confidence in what you do, that's definitely the best finish that I've had. Onto the dashboard. Wasn't quite sure how this was going to pan out, to be honest. It's really badly cracked on the top. It's all split underneath. All the plastic sort of is falling apart. It looks like there was a bit of like a fire at the back of the dashboard at some point. It's all sort of like charred and a little bit crispy, and a bit of a burn hole in the back of it. It's all starting to pull apart. So I thought it's worth a go. So I started off by pulling out all the staples that's in there and just trying to get some structure back in the actual dashboard. Then give it a clean up. And to start with, I used some like 2-part Innertech glue that I actually used for fixing the body kit, just to try and hold it together, and then just clamped it in place while that was drying. I then did the same on the next section towards the end. There is a part to the left of my left hand where there's no actual edge to glue, so I'm going to repair that with some fiberglass. I've read a few bits as to what people's use to repair these dashboards, so I just ordered some big boy fiberglass repair kit and the plastic bumper filler. I think that's quite commonly used to repair these dashboards, so I thought it's pretty inexpensive, so give that a go. I managed to get a clamp just to hold the dashboard in place, and then cut some fiberglass sheets, soaked it in a bit of resin, and then just started to lay it on top of the dashboard, and then just pushed it into place using a brush. And then I just layered 3 other sheets on top of this just to build up a bit of strength in it. I used the same process just to fill the hole that appeared to have been created from whatever had happened behind the dashboard. Again, just used about 3 to 4 layers of fiberglass matting just to fill this in. Once I'd got the structure of the dashboard a little bit more solid, I decided it was time to start working on the cracks that have appeared. So I gave it a good clean, tried to get rid of anything loose and broken off. I then drilled all the ends of the cracks out with about a 6mm drill bit, but it's a strange material. It's like a foam and then covered in like a plasticky type laminate that goes over it. I assume it's like vacuum formed or something in the factory. So I thought I'd attack it with the angle grinder just to open up the cracks a little bit more so that I can actually get some material in there to try and bond it back together. Definitely wear a dust mask while you do this because it's really not the most pleasantest material to work with. As you can see from here where the crack went all the way through the actual top of the dashboard, so I've cut it all out and you can see how sort of warped it actually is. So I'll give it a quick mock-up just to see how the clocks fit in there. I do need to make some new supports for the back of this as well because some of the actual supports have actually broken off. I'll fill in some of the other cracks just so that I'm not flexing the whole of the dashboard while I'm trying to straighten out the main area where it's warped. To try and straighten out the top of the dash, I decided to try and sort of stitch it back together using some stainless steel TIG wire. Just sort of chop them to length and then just push it into the foam. It allowed me to actually flex the dashboard back into shape and hold it there so I could get some filler into it. So I gave the top of the dash a quick sand over and then another skim of filler, just a light skim this time. You don't really need to use anything any coarser than a 120 grit paper with this type of filler. It comes off really easily, and if you go too coarse, it just takes it off too quickly, and you lose a little bit of control as to what you're doing. Now, I did also have to repair the area around where the radio goes because it had a bad repair done there before. So, same method as what I used for the back of the dashboard. I just layered multiple sheets of fiberglass and resin on top, and then once that had gone dry, I made a small template and just chopped out the center hole where the radio goes. You can use a file to get the final sort of size of this. It's easy enough to file out to get the right size, but it's a lot more neater and stronger than it was. One thing that I did struggle with was trying to get the texture of the dashboard to look right and match. And I've heard people say like use tin foil or an empty crisp packet to try and get the right texture. I did try that, and to be honest, it looked awful. So I had this idea of just trying the Gravitex gun just to see how that turns out. And I thought what I'll do is I'll give it a good coat, let it go off, and then sand it back. Because I didn't really expect this dashboard to be repairable. If this doesn't turn out right, then my idea is that I'll go down the route of flocking the dashboard just to give me something to use temporarily, and then I'll just keep my eye out for something a little bit more solid coming up in the future. With the paint fully dry, I go over it with some 120 grit sandpaper, and then I go over that with some 400 grit just to try and smooth out and try and sort of match some of the texture of the other bits of the dashboard. The paint that I use for the dashboard is a product by Inotech. The colour's medium grey. I'll leave a link in the description for the place I bought it from. I give the dashboard a good clean down with some panel wipe and then just a couple of coats. It seems to be a really good match, this colour does. As you can see from the front, it's not starting to look too bad now. All the cracks are gone and the colour's looking a lot better. As this paint dries off, it gets a nice matte finish to it, so it does look pretty close to the original colour. I had already painted the front of the glove box and the little coin tray before, just as a bit of a test with the paint to make sure that it stuck well and that it was the right colour. So it's just a case of putting the dashboard back together now. Most of the bits I've got to hand. There's a few bits floating around in the loft that I need to get back out again. But just to give them a bit of a clean up, especially for like the ash tray and the inside of the glove box, I just ran them through the Aqua Blaster. Same as the intermittent wiper speed adjuster, that was covered in greasy old fingerprints and dirt, and I ran that through the Aqua Blaster and it pretty much brought it up like new, so it's really a useful tool to have. And at that point, it's just a case of putting everything back together. So got the glove box back in, although I think there was a few screws that was missing from that from when I got the car, so I might just need to get a few extra clips here and there. The centre air vents are somewhere in the loft, so I need to dig them out, and I will need a new centre speaker grill because that's falling apart. And then just to see how it looks, I've loosely just dropped it in the car. It doesn't look too bad. It's not 100% straight across the back, but the window seal will cover some of that. So it was really badly warped to start with, but for now I'm pretty happy with it, and I think it'll do until something better comes along. Thank you very much for watching. Hopefully it's been helpful. Again, if anybody's got any ideas of how to do these things differently or any other way of doing it that might be slightly better, just drop me a comment. Always good to know.